of this panel discussion are Mr. Jimmy Wells, the co-founder of Wikimedia Foundation, Mr. Arlen Prescott, Chief Strategy Officer of Grameenphone, Mr. Håkon Bruseth Kroll from Telenor Group, and Mr. Afzal Hossain Sarwar, Policy Expert, A2I Prime Minister Office. Now I would like to call upon Mr. Anir Choudhury to come to stage and invite the distinguished panel members. Thank you. Mr. Anir Choudhury on the stage.
Welcome, everybody. It's actually a great honor for me today to actually moderate a session with great regard for. We met recently for the first time in London at an educational technology show where Jimmy spoke for a while about the story of Wikipedia and how the entire world by storm in terms of how knowledge is stored, disseminated, accessed, and used today. So Wikimedia actually has created a new way of doing all these things. Interestingly, at the same seminar, somebody was actually asking questions that today, when you have teenagers talking about knowledge, if you ask them, go look up that information in encyclopedia, they often ask, what is that? What is an encyclopedia? Is it something like Wikipedia? So that's what the word is coming to, actually. So much of that credit actually goes to Mr. Wells. And we are here today to talk to him and also to talk about Grameenphone's Internet for All dream and strategy. So I won't go into a long introduction. I'll go straight to Jimmy and ask him to tell us a little bit about the story of Wikipedia and how it has evolved from when you started. What were your expectations or dreams when you started Wikipedia, and what do you see today?
Well, I mean, I think the best place to start is at the beginning. I had a vision to have a free encyclopedia for everyone, written in their own language. This was back in 1999, and I launched a project called Nupedia. I was inspired by the growth of the free software movement, open source software, seeing people coming together to collaborate to write all the really great software that runs the internet. But at the time, I didn't know about the wiki editing concept, an open website, and so we designed a very top-down, very academic process for people to publish entries, and this was a failure. A lot of people were excited about the vision, but I didn't understand much about online communities and so on, and so it was very intimidating for people to be involved. Once we set up the wiki back in January of 2001, we got more work done in 2 weeks than we had done in nearly 2 years, because it was easy for people to just come and contribute, update each other's work, and begin to create things. Wikipedia, you know, we quickly, because we had ambitions to be global, we quickly moved into other languages, launched language after language after language. It was a few years process. There's still more languages to launch even today. And you know, we've grown now to be the 5th most popular website in the world. In most markets, we're in the top 10, at worst. And you know, more than 500 million people are using the website every month. We've become part of the infrastructure of the world. And yeah, what you think about, what you said about students, if you think about so Wikipedia is 14 years old now. And so if you think about an 18-year-old student who's just entering university, Wikipedia has existed anyway since they were learning how to read. And certainly for the last 5 years, which would be the age when they would turn to the internet for their homework and things like that, Wikipedia has been ubiquitous. And so therefore, the next generation coming up, Wikipedia is just part of the world, and it's just a normal thing for them. It's an amazing thing to think about.
What do you see in the next 10 years? What will happen to Wikipedia and the way people actually use Wikipedia?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think one of the things that will be invisible to most existing users of Wikipedia is the growth of Wikipedia in the languages of the developing world. So, you know, English speakers in the US and the UK and places like this won't notice that the Bangla language Wikipedia has gone from 34,000 to 340,000 entries and has become a comprehensive resource. But obviously, in a global perspective, that's incredibly important to us. I think other changes we'll see a lot of technological changes. Internet is the growth of mobile and the fact that people are accessing Wikipedia for mobile. And in fact, when we think about the next 2 billion people who come online, the vast majority of them, their first experience of the internet is going to be on a mobile device. And that's the only experience they're going to have for quite some time. And that has a lot of implications for contribution and participation and so forth.
Do you think in 10 years, people will access Wikipedia fundamentally differently, or will it be more of the same, or is it going to be fundamentally different? I
think it'll be more or less the same. I mean, I think that, you know, the basic fundamentals of an encyclopedia article, for example, people say, you know, well, what about a little bit more video? Learn about Queen Victoria. I don't want to watch a video. I just want to read an entry. And that's a fundamental thing that hasn't changed in a way for hundreds of years. Won't change much more. But we will see, you know, we already see this happening in the wealthier countries and also the more mobile obsessed countries, that the percentage of accesses from mobile will continue to increase for a while. You know, that's
often teachers in schools will actually say that Wikipedia is not authentic. So I've seen in my kid's school, he has cited references, and teacher said that, okay, that's not encyclopedia. So that's this newfangled thing, right? So maybe they were from the last generation and they don't understand the importance of it, but they will say that. Yeah. So what can parents say in response to a situation like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I think there's a few different ways of looking at this. So one is the question of quality. We aim to be better quality than a traditional encyclopedia. That's our goal. Sometimes we meet it, sometimes we don't. But even if we have very, very high quality, it's not clear to me that an encyclopedia is what you should cite as a source in an academic paper. This depends on the age, of course. So if you're a university student, and when I was at university, if I tried to cite Encyclopedia Britannica, this would not have been accepted, right? Dig deeper, the encyclopedia. On the other, if we have a student who's 11 years old and they write something and they put a footnote and they cite something, wow, success. I mean, we've moved forward anyway. And so I do think for younger children, it's okay. But I think that, you know, it used to be, you would sometimes hear, you know, I tell my kids don't even look at Wikipedia, but you don't hear that much anymore. And anyway, 100% of all young people are using Wikipedia for their homework. We just know that as a fact. So I think what educators need to do instead is to teach about Wikipedia, teach the strengths, teach the weaknesses, so that people can use it effectively.
In terms of being media rich, Wikipedia...
There's more people than just me.
I wanted to get a few questions out. And
okay, I'm not complaining. I'm just...
I'll come to the rest of the panelists. Don't worry. We have an hour and a half, so we have plenty of time to actually get to the rest of the... I'm not ignoring them. Don't worry. Infone is organizing this. I cannot ignore them by any means. Don't worry about that. Yeah, so in terms of being media rich, Wikipedia is mostly text, some pictures, and obviously there is merit to that. It's very mobile friendly. It's very bandwidth friendly, especially for countries like ours where most internet is access to mobile phones, and it's still 2G, 2G connectivity, so slow speed. So that's where Wikipedia has significant merit. But as the world will move more and more towards higher speeds at lower costs, and connectivity, high-speed connectivity will become more and more ubiquitous, do you see Wikipedia being more media-rich? Do you actually see that as a goal or as a possibility?
I see it more as a possibility than a goal. Certainly, it would be fine to have more video, particularly historic video. I think could have a lot of value. So if you are reading the entry about Winston Churchill, and then you can click through and watch a video of a famous speech, sure, that sounds great. But in general, there's not a lot of demand from our community for more video. The kind of knowledge that we're presenting isn't necessarily well presented in video. It's very hard to collaborate on video. You know, you can't, if you write a paragraph, I can come back and I can say, oh, well, look, I just read your paragraph and I see these 3 ways we could improve it. There's a little bit of a biased word here and this and that. If you make a video, I can't come back and say, the lighting wasn't quite right and you should move the camera over 4 feet and so on. Instead, you just say, well, video is just video and that's all there is to it. So we're not going to become a video heavy site. There are other things that I do think we could have and should have. I mean, but this is fairly rare, but I think there are certain concepts like how the human heart works or how an internal combustion engine works, where an animation, the idea, I mean, if you go and read in Wikipedia our explanation of how the internal combustion engine works, it's very confusing because how do you write it in text? But if you see the pistons and the movement, then, okay, I understand it. Things like that, I wish that we had more of that kind of material in Wikipedia, and I think we will in the future.
So do you ever see a cross between Wikipedia and YouTube?
No, not really. Not really. I always say I love funny cat videos, but they don't belong in Wikipedia. So.
Okay. Okay. Let me come to Hakan. Telenor globally, I think, has a very ambitious target of getting people on the internet because it actually sees that internet is bringing social good. And Grameenphone in particular in Bangladesh is actually going with that same ambition and dream. How actually do you see that happening in Bangladesh?
Well, first of all, I do believe that actually there's a lot of people that want to use the internet because of funny cat videos and social media, and I don't think we should, in a way, pretend that that is not also a very, very important driver for getting people on board. But I think the Telenor Group's overall ambition, as we have discussed also in the past, is about also taking a wider look at how could connectivity through mobile and internet provide other benefits to people. You know, Telenor is a 160-year-old company, and we've been pioneering kind of a numerous number of technologies, and mobile being one of them. We went mobile very early because we thought that a mobile phone was in a way a rich man's toy, one way or the other. It was designed to be put in cars and integrated in cars, and they were very big. But we took a bet very early on that if you want to give people basic communication, mobile is most probably the closest you will get to be able to do that. And that was in the early 1990s. And today, within the geography that Telenor is present, around 180 million people are having that basic access today. And what's happening today is that we are connecting more and more people to go online. Social network organizations have just done a report where they say that 3 billion people are today online, and there will be another 40% increase in the next 4 to 5 years. I think that's most probably a very conservative number, looking at the rate in which internet has actually come to people. And our ambition is to grow what we have today, which is an average penetration in the Asian footprint from approximately 15% to around 80% in the next 3 years. Now, that is, of course, a very ambitious target. But nothing has ever happened without great passion and hairy targets. And that's also a little bit the way we are trying to do this. And to be able to do that, we are looking at ways of driving relevance, because I think while YouTube and funny cats and social media will get us a certain distance, there are also a lot of people which do not have any type of feeling for that type of content, but they would rather see the internet used for some sort of a bigger purpose. And then we talk about new verticals like education, like health, like financial services, and all sorts of services which would increase transparency, for instance, in the marketplace. One of the big problems among many in some emerging markets is the middleman. It's a very famous concept, because the middleman in a way exists because the marketplace does not efficiently provide information to the buyer and the seller. And just by the fact that you get access to internet, suddenly the middleman's role is one way or the other diminished, which means that the seller would get a better price, the right price for its crop, and the buyer would pay what the market is in a way currently at that price point. Coming back to education. I think education, if you think about it, there's been a lot of discussions about inequality in terms of who people get access, and the majority of people who do not get access. And in a way, the mobile internet or the internet has the potential to be the great equalizer, one way or the other, where Wikipedia also play an important role in achieving that. Because suddenly you have an opportunity to get information, knowledge and content to people which in the past neither had access to that type of knowledge or had any interest. A couple of years ago, the GS Industry Association did the study together with MasterCard Foundation, where they studied this particular phenomenon. And to no surprise, of course, education comes up as one of the highest drivers for young people after family and health. But it becomes more in looking at where do young people today look for knowledge and information. Only 25% said that they got that in the classroom, which means that there is an enormous amount of education avenues opening up. In particularly knowing that 74% in most markets today in the younger age groups actually have a mobile phone. And 63% of those surveyed actually said very clearly that I would be interested in education content on my mobile device. You said, Jimmy, that their first entry point would be the mobile device, and eventually, potentially, they would evolve into different type of internet access. I actually believe that in many emerging economies, the only internet experience will be through the mobile device. And that, of course, changes the way we look at content. It changes the interface, and it changes the way we build interaction between the content makers, the operators, and ourselves. Last point. None of this will happen if there is not a network. Without a network, no access. And I think I was in a panel just a little bit more than a year ago where I talked about this in this pretty much same occasion. That the net are really critical to get there, and is not going to happen by itself. Just a quick number, in Asia Pacific alone, $730 billion will have to be invested going forward until 2020 to cater for the growing data demand in this region, which is an enormous amount of money. Then the government needs to play a part, because the government will then have to release in a timely manner radio waves and spectrum, which will allow us to deploy those high-speed networks. We need to get prices down. Alan and me we have a bet going on 4G device prices. The current 4G device price in the world hovers around 80. He believes it's going to be $60 in a year. I believe it's going to be slightly lower, around 50. But the prices will have to come down to be able to reach the real and penetrate the real mass market. And if we want people to have a good internet experience on a mobile device, we need to see higher speed coming in. Lastly, content is going to be important, not only in the education of making health services, financial services, content that is locally relevant, whereby local language is going to be becoming increasingly important if we are to reach the Telenor Group's 80% penetration of internet within 2018. And that's how we have Wikimedia Foundation since 2012 as a group. We have an agreement where we work in 8 markets. We have 2 of them are going to launch this year. We have Bangladesh and Malaysia, and also going to be one of the biggest drivers to get people on board. And that's also why you see players like Facebook and others are really aggressively moving into local language to ensure that they are relevant.
Great, thank you. I mean, you've actually covered a lot of ground in terms of what I wanted to ask you. So the number of questions will be less to you, but you've covered quite a bit. But on the point of education, I think you brought up some very interesting things. So obviously the first is access. You can actually content. But if we go a little deeper into the educational issues, let's analyze why are funny cat videos interesting and why is Facebook interesting? Because it's very easy to access and it provides some value. I mean, entertainment or connectivity to other human beings.
People still like to laugh, right?
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Now, as far as education is concerned, let's actually take a deeper look at what is available today that can be accessed for Bangladesh. I mean, as an example of developing countries. And I'll come to Erlen because we had a number of discussions on this, education, health, but let's focus on the education bit. So as far as content is concerned, for education, and then education is a large market. So you could pick a market, let's say school-going children, so secondary schools perhaps. So what can we access through mobile phones that is useful to school-going children in Bangladesh?
Yeah, I'll start with saying education is the one we haven't cracked. And I'll be honest about that. Sure. I think that there is any amount. The reason I
ask is that the nexus of, the way I see it, the nexus between Grameenphone and Wikipedia is possibly the biggest impact is in the education space.
Yeah. No, the great thing about Wikipedia is that it's so easy to like. It's one of those, it's non-commercial. It's I think almost impossible to define it as unethical. And it's a lovely partner to have because it's such a pure offering. It also illustrates something very interesting to me, and it's around this time last week. I was in the office and I was starting to feel pretty unwell. I was getting sick. I went home and I started throwing up. And then a couple of hours later, I started getting abdominal pain. I've heard about this, that if you throw up and if you get abdominal pain, you should be a bit careful. So I Googled it, and up came Wikipedia. And I managed to say, okay, these 2 symptoms, they can be an indication of acute appendicitis. So fast forward a couple of days, I had a surgery in Bangkok, and I came back a couple of days ago. But for me, it illustrates something quite interesting. I did that on a mobile. I had exactly the same access as anyone on a laptop in a Western country. There was no difference whatsoever. And I used that. That was my primary information. Now, education or health, you can argue that, okay, a student could have done the same for an essay. I would say, even for health, that was a very relevant source of information. And it really brought it home for me that, talking about the great equalizer, this was exactly the same for any Wikipedia user on 2G on a feature phone in this country as it was on a, expensive smartphone. So that was just a slightly personal touch to the issue. I think with Wikipedia, we are doing two things effectively. And talking again back to education and also the major challenge. We're zero rating Wikipedia. Now, when you zero rate Wikipedia, we basically give it to you for free. That's nice. That's not bad, right? That's good. What the second thing we're doing, which I think is, I would say, at least as important actually, is that we're trying to make it relevant and local, or help Wikimedia, I think more precisely, make it relevant and make it local. And we're doing that through supporting the community, generating content in local language and generating local content at all. Now, I think what we're seeing now is that we're reaching some sort of, there's a sort of roof. We can keep doing this. We can keep making it cheaper and cheaper. We can keep making it more and more local. But if people have no idea about what it is, if they have no idea about the concept of internet, if they have no idea about what information is there, that is by far our biggest challenge. And that's becoming very clear in Bangladesh. You know, in our customer base, we're about 20%, 1 of 5, now use the internet on a more or less regular basis, which means 4 of 5 don't. Offer free internet to people who have a phone that can use it. Means 3% take the offer. 97% find why they should use free internet. And that for us is very clearly the biggest challenge also for education. And last point on education is, and that's why I say we haven't cracked it, is the best educational material today is also very complex material. And I'll take the example of Khan Academy, which is at the other range of Wikipedia. I would say Wikipedia being text-based, I would say fairly front-end low-tech, back-end maybe very advanced, but front-end kind of low-tech interface. Khan Academy being, you know, massively rich, massively complex. You can't even use it on a mobile. You know, they just launched their iOS app recently, but it's one of the biggest educational sites in the world. So I think that the very, very best of educational content still hasn't come. We still haven't cracked that. The basic content, I think, Wikipedia and similar services do.
If you look at education from the perspective of students, let's take student vocational education. And this is a question to any one of you, actually. Let's take somebody who wants to just learn about appendicitis. That's education, right? Yeah. So again, for the 8th grader, they have assignments to actually complete. They have a very specific target that's specified by their teachers, targeted to something connected with textbooks. Right? Vocation, it's potentially need rich, including text. And then the appendicitis example, I mean, Wikipedia as it exists today is actually absolutely brilliant to serve that need. So the education needs are different. See the initiatives from Grameenphone, and how do you see Wikipedia at different specific needs? Again, in the education.
I'll try. I think the last one is what we do well, right? Yes. We give access to information that people already want, that is relatively available, that we do well. The vocational content or the rich content, as I said, I think we're not there. We give access, but we don't package it in an attractive way.
I mean, think about
it's actually very hard because so first of all, Wikipedia, you know, it has to be sustainable. If it's sustainable, then you can scale it in a very. Now, if you're scaling very rich content, more expensive as well, but it's about sustainability. And video is 70% of all traffic on the net. So if you're making kind of, if you're making vocational content, if you're making rich content, you have to package it in a way which makes it affordable for those who need it, with ring fence it, and if we want to sell it, then we have to create that package. And that we're working, and I think, but it's.
I think this really depends on what kind of what end do you start. So you can always start in the simple way by digitizing all the school books. I mean, it's a way of doing it if you want to do that. But I think what we are struggling on is in a way trying to find a model where we as an operator, we do not create this content. We are neither the Ministry of Education, who set the standards for what needs to be taught in schools, nor do we create content, nor are we part of a platform which in a way is crowdsourced based, which in a way allows people to participate and create the content themselves. So I think what we are struggling with is that you have all kinds of the Khan Academy model, which of course is a rather comprehensive package, which requires a lot of bandwidth. But you can also go the other side and be very targeted. I think in the group we have not yet found that model across at least they have an opportunity to scale and be sustainable over time. Because I think Alan's point is very good. I mean, digitalizing all the school books is actually not that difficult. I mean, it's just pretty much finding a scanner if you wanted to do it in the simple way and create PDF files of them. But I mean, that most probably is not the value proposition that we are looking at, neither from a pedagogic or from point of view.
And the irony here is, a lot of the best content on education is actually coming out of the elite universities, right? It's targeting the Western markets. So the thing about education is, where it's most needed for basic education in emerging markets, the whole market is currently in very advanced markets. And that has to switch. We're seeing signs. So, and I think these days is community. It's going to be small, tiny startup that have very niche that are the handsets to the connectivity levels, to very customized propositions.
One of the things that I wish Salman Khan was here, I would just to say, most of the Khan Academy content is very, very rich and very data heavy, and therefore is fantastic if you're in the US on a nice broadband connection or in Europe. What are the things that they could be doing, because they do have an interest in education for all, to deliver lighter weight things that could potentially be zero rated? It's not reasonable to expect the carriers can just, they have to have a business model. So if it's a lightweight pager, a few things, and socially good gets people using, that's one thing. And I do think that it's a startup opportunity actually in the developing world, where people can more deeply understand the market. Even such things as the specific vocational content is incredibly different. It's one thing. I decided I was going to learn Ruby on Rails, a programming framework. So I bought a course. I paid, I forget, $130 for it, and I downloaded all of these videos. And it's just not practical for people in this environment. And it's also for the people who are just now moving from a feature phone to a smartphone. They're not trying to learn Ruby on Rails, right? They're trying to learn something vocationally useful in their lives, which is not likely to be provided, frankly, by Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is very good at solving the problems of the 28-year-old computer programmer, because that's who they all are, maybe not so good at being entrepreneurial about solving problems in the rest of the world. And we need that.
Right. I think that's a very important point, Jimmy, that you mentioned, that we're looking at problems that are being solved in the Western world. The context is very different here, and that exact solution or even some adaptation of it may not work. I'll ask a very naive question. Now, Grameenphone has a physical distribution channel through which you sell SIMs and handsets. And you have the virtual distribution channel, which is your network, right? So if we are saying that effective educational content actually requires rich media and also not so rich media. So is it conceivable that the not so rich media can be, such as Wikipedia as it exists today, can actually be driven through the network, and rich media can actually be driven through your physical network, which is your distribution channel? So basically, you have SD cards, you have a huge movie distribution channel in Bangladesh, not formal, obviously. There are Hindi movies, all kinds of distributed very aggressively through this. So could be potentially perhaps own models or startups supported by you, where a true educational content can actually be distributed through a blended model of using the virtual network and your distribution, physical distribution network. Again, a very naive question. I don't know enough about whether this will work or not.
I kind of like the idea, and I think we will do anything that we think works. That's the starting point. So you know, if we thought that would work, principal objection to doing that. That's starting point. Second thing is, when we did a survey very early on, we actually found our retailers to be less internet savvy than to what we want, and benefit the inherent online is that you can constantly make it better, update it, of those benefits. So I think it could be a stopgap solution. I don't think it's the build a better and speeds and cheaper internet and package in a way that is so affordable that we would rather do it that way. And I think smartphones will come faster than people think, speeds will increase faster than people think, and costs will come down faster than people think. So for me, I think we would prefer the future-proof solution, but I like the concept.
If I might add, I think your point that you bring is very, very, very interesting, and of course, it's something that we spend an enormous amount of thinking about, because we are, the Telenor Group alone in Asia has a footprint of 1.3 million retail points, which puts us at the same size as Coca-Cola, pretty much. You can buy us on any street corner. Of course, here, because the majority of the product that we are selling are prepaid, which means that it's not, you don't get a bill, you actually go and top up every single day. And we know that the digital distribution part is in a way out of bounds for a lot of people today, because I mean, if you want to become a client of the iTunes store, you need a credit card, or you need to buy some sort of a voucher from Amazon, which you also most probably need a credit card to do. So one way or the other, you are locked out of the digital distribution market. And of course, when we start looking at the digital distribution, our physical distribution in some sort of an omni-channel type of strategy, then of course you could potentially see scale, which could include also other services than just pure entertainment, sort of like I mean, we are already using financial services very aggressively in Pakistan, for instance. We have 6 million customers, where we use the physical distribution points as part of the digital distribution. So I think, yes, the answer is yes. We haven't most probably figured out how to use that in the education landscape. And I think, as Alan says, we would most probably start investments in building a first-class high-speed network. But being present in 1.3 million point of sales also has its advantages.
Just to say one more point on this, we did a bit of a study on education in Bangladesh, and what we found is almost everyone take private tuition. So they all go to school, but the informal sector is not as big as the formal sector, but it's huge. And I think we estimated it in the size to 12 to 18 billion taka of revenue each year in this country. Our families spend a huge amount of disposable income on these tutors. So when we started into this, we said, okay, the people want to pay for education. It's just about quality and availability. And that premise, I think, remains the point. It doesn't have to be free. That's not the problem. It has to be really good and has to be really relevant. We're trying to find. The biggest hurdle we found back then was getting that content right, that is approved by the getting teachers on board, because this would take away part of. That's also a problem. If you content online, their private tutoring business, then a lot of that
is to actually sell their content.
Now this one I really like, right? And crowdsourcing of really good content from teachers, we're really interested. So if there's any startup out there that wants to start crowdsourcing for it.
Okay, fantastic. Let me come to our fourth panel, Afzal Hussain Sarwar, who works at the Access to Internet Prime Minister's office. A2I has actually developed or several different portals that has a lot of content that is not linked with Wikipedia. Now, do you have any plans that this content is actually searchable through Wikipedia, connected to Wikipedia? Because Wikipedia, as we know it, is the largest encyclopedia in the world. And that's where people go first for knowledge, for information. So do you have any plans for that?
Yes, I think it could be a strong idea to bring into the all content, which we have produced. Because you have already told that we have many content related to the national portal framework, national content repository, and teachers portal. And I think many of you already know that we have 1.5 million content on the national content portal. And most of them are authentic because these contents are producing from the interministry level to the lowest tier of the government, union level. They are producing content. Here we have gone with the idea of bottom-up approach, where from the top level to lowest level content producers are developing many kind of content. And we have around 1.7 million content in the internet, and all of them are in the Bengali language. So I am seeing a strong opportunity to bringing up all the content to the Wikimedia, because if we just creating a link and giving an introduction in the Wikipedia, then we can definitely use the references. And anyone who are interested regarding the rest of the content and other relevant link, they can easily go to the content repository or national content portal or teachers portal directly. So I think this is a good opportunity to bringing all the content in the Wikipedia.
It's a question to Jimmy now. Let's say A2I wants to bring all this content into Wikipedia or link them. You were just before the session, you were talking about a bot that actually generated content in a very meaningful way. Do you actually envision a bot being able to do this?
Depends on particulars about what is in the particular content and so forth. I mean, certainly we're eager to work with people who have content repositories that either we can link to in a relevant context, or we can import if that's the right thing to do. You know, not everything is an encyclopedia article, so not everything belongs in Wikipedia proper, but we have Wikisource, Wikimedia Commons, we have a lot of other sort of infrastructure around what we're doing. And I mean, I think this is where our local chapters really shine. And this would fall under the heading of what we call GLAM work, galleries, libraries, and museums. It doesn't just be that, it's any kind of a content partner that we can work with. So I don't know if you're in touch with the Wikimedia Bangladesh, but they're here, so they'll hunt you down afterwards. Because it's something, I think there are great opportunities for us to, and even if in the simplest, most lightweight way, just to raise awareness and because we have a huge distribution channel because Wikipedia is so popular, and just the ability to make people more aware of what the government is making available to them is actually very valuable in and of itself.
Sarwar, you also work on several other innovative education models. The one that we just talked about with the blended way of distributing content, I think you are working on some of those things. Would you enlighten us on what you're doing, any pilots or?
Yes, regarding vocational content that already has been discussed, that we are working with BMET, I mean Bureau of Manpower Training and Employment. There we are starting a platform that is e-learning platform for the migrant workers. So the idea is we can supply the content through SD card to the migrant workers who are planning to go abroad. And we are also creating the online platform from UDC, I mean Union Digital Center. Entrepreneurs can download the content and also provide the content migrant workers. Here, Grameenphone, how they can also part of this program or initiative. Definitely, I mean, if there are some problems of connectivity, and as Grameenphone is also involved with the handset, and I think that's not it.
Wait, Jimmy, I have a question on a different topic actually. One of the things I learned from you in London is that most Wikipedia contributors are technical. So they have software background, or at least they do technical work. How do you envision broadening that contributor base so that non-technical people can actually contribute? And we have a lot of volunteers in Bangladesh. I don't know what the mix in Bangladesh is, whether it's mostly technical people or it's a mix. But how do you see that change, promoting that change?
Sure. I mean, so I'm sure the mix here is very similar to everywhere, which is that people who are working in technical fields are more comfortable with every aspect of computing, and they have the literacy to do it, and they are excited about the concept of Wikipedia, and they get involved. And there is very often some barrier to entry for people who are less technical. You click on edit and you see wiki markup language, and you don't really know what that is, and you're a little bit nervous, although it's easier than HTML, it's not familiar to people, and then they hit the back button because they're nice people and they don't want to break anything. So we're investing a lot in our visual editor, and in general investing a lot in product and engineering. We have a relatively new CEO who we specifically brought in with a desire for stronger product and engineering, and actually we've refocused the Wikimedia Foundation to focus a lot more on those kinds of things. And one of the reasons is exactly this diversity issue, making sure that people who have, I always say there are geeks who aren't computer geeks, and that's the people we want. So people who have an expertise in an area, but they're not super confident on the computer, they should be able to click edit and get a an environment that's very similar to a word processing environment or a modern web interface.
Doctors producing content on healthcare, perhaps.
Exactly, yeah, doctors on healthcare, historians, so, you know, people who are academic historians may not be able to do much more than send some email on their computer, you know, and they haven't been trained in that, and they shouldn't have to be trained in arcane technical details in order to contribute to Wikipedia. So we're investing a lot in trying to make that editing interface easier. Of course, we face the classic kind of technology trap that you get into, which is we have our power users who are incredibly good with our current software, which is very good and very powerful. You can't break that for them, but you also have to have an experience to accommodate newcomers and help them to become productive as well. And so we have to kind of support different things in parallel, which ends up being very difficult. I mean, it'd be very simple to create a nice visual editing environment if we just threw everything away that we have today and started from scratch, but that would be a disaster because the community has all these fantastic tools they've developed and skills that they've developed. So it's a big challenge that we're really focused on.
Great. I'll go to the audience for questions and also to our Twitter feed. But before I do that, there's one last question to all the panelists. And this is a debate that I've actually been in for several years. That the more access that we have to ready-made content, the less or more creative we are. So one school of thought says that we're becoming more creative because we don't have to, like Einstein said, why do you have to remember my phone number? Because it's in the phone book, just look it up. So that's one kind of thought, that I don't have to remember the rote things that can be looked up in Wikipedia. So I can spend more time in creative faculties or creative thinking. And the other is, because we don't remember anything anymore, it's making us less creative. So what is your opinion of that? I mean, Jimmy, if you start, Hakan.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Erland and Sarwar.
I actually think that the way people often think about this is not quite correct, because I think that we are doing as much or more sort of learning of facts than as we ever did. What we've cut out is the waste of time of traveling down to the library and looking through a card catalog and digging for a book. In fact, we just go straight to it whenever we want it. And it's not that now we don't have to know, because to be creative, to really move forward, you can't just look up every fact every time you need to know something. If you're a chemist and you're trying to invent a new chemical, you can't exactly go up and look up what a valence bond is every time you know it. And so, you know, I think this is a mistake. I mean, for me, one of the biggest things that's going on is that formal education has remained more or less stable in most places around the world. You know, maybe a few more people percentage-wise getting college degrees and so on, but there's no radical shift going on. But it's the informal learning where we've had this enormous explosion, and that's helping for people to be creative for cross-disciplinary studies, for example. So if I'm a chemist and an idea from biology at a conference or something, I can go online and sort of read the Wikipedia entry about something I don't know much about, but also get in contact with researchers in that area. And so I think we're becoming more creative because of the internet, not less.
Well, I echo what Jimmy says, and I think first of all, I think, you know, we in Telenor Group, we want to create an internet for inspiration, and I think one of the things that people need is inspiration, and you can today it's possible to get that inspiration even if you are in a way living in the most far-flung area. It comes in the sense of being connected to other people and on other places far away from you, doing other things that you yourself are doing. So you can actually sit in Chittagong and you can have friends all over the kinds of bound by travel time at your doorstep. And in my view, I think that at least have a good opportunity to inspire people. And if we believe that inspiration is what is required to be creative, then I think this is actually an important role where becoming more internet-oriented actually helps.
I think technology, I think most technology inherently is not good or evil, it just is, which means what you make of it is what it becomes. So like a knife, you can make food with it or you can kill someone with it. And I think technology is very much the same. I think what technology is doing these days is that it's lowering the threshold for innovation radically. So when you move innovation from hardware to software, and when you move it from local to global, I think there was a tweet I wrote today. I think that the hurdle to become a global company, you can argue, is like a 1/100th of 1,000 of what it used to be. Because you can start a company with $1,000 and you can become a global company overnight, theoretically. And that, I think, is a form of creativity. We were betting that all the questions were for Jimmy.
Looks like they're for all of you.
Oh, very good.
Sarah, do you have any thoughts?
Actually, I believe that sometimes it will be helpful because technology always gives the opportunity to do more things. So if, I mean, the people have the accessibility to the internet, they can go to the resources and they can make him enriched and can be become more creative and innovative. So I think it can be helpful.
Great, thank you, thank you. So we've gotten a number of questions from the audience and also from our Twitter feed. Because of the time crunch, we'll take a few and see how it goes. So let me take a few questions from the audience first, to Jimmy actually. I'll read this out. This is from Muhammadul Islam, BRAC University, graduate student. Can Wikipedia be developed into a valid reference source for academic purposes through a citation process, validated or confirmed by experts?
I don't think so. And so for me, this is always an interesting question. So the goal for Wikipedia is to be as high quality as possible. And so from that perspective, it would be interesting to explore new ways of finally signing off or having some expert approve some content, although it's not clear to me that experts are necessarily the best approvers of content because they come with their own biases and so on, and their own skills and expertises. But even if we did that, I wouldn't think that an encyclopedia is the kind of thing that you would want to cite in an academic work, other than as background material, which you could do already, is to say, well, look, if you don't know anything about this subject, go read this. This gives you an introduction. It's not the kind of thing that you would find some fact from, because in an encyclopedia, we don't present original research. And so at a high academic level, citing Wikipedia is silly. You should go to Wikipedia and then go read the original research and cite that, and that's just part of the research process.
Okay. Thank you. The next one is also to you. Rizwan from SD Asia, Content Manager. I should like this question. What does Wikipedia's backend office look like? Who curates the content? How does it work?
Okay, well, so the first thing to understand is that those questions have nothing to do with each other, which is kind of the exciting thing about Wikipedia. That the content is curated by the volunteer community out in the world. So sometimes, I'm talking to people and they start asking questions about Wikipedia and they want to know this, and I don't understand the question. And then I say, I understand. They want to know, where's the big building with thousands of editors all reviewing the content and with books and stacks and things? It doesn't work like that at all. So that's what's exciting about Wikipedia, is that the actual content review, and in that sense, the back end of the content process is carried out from people working from home or from wherever, and they do meetups, they get together in community groups and all these kinds of things. The actual office in San Francisco looks like a normal office of a .com or a nonprofit. I'm not sure which it looks more like, in a lovely with brick building and exposed beams and desks and cubicles, and people are working on different projects, and there's the engineering team and there's the legal team, and et cetera, et cetera. In some ways, as radical as Wikipedia is as a concept, the actual place of work is quite a normal office. A fun office, I hope, but quite a normal office, yeah.
I can testify to the number of people there is, I think it's in the tens.
Yeah, I think the headcount's about 250 these days, so.
That's the new enterprise.
Yes, yeah.
Question for Hakan. From a Twitter feed, Mashfik. How Telenor Group or Grameenphone is thinking of making internet or educational sites more accessible for people of Bangladesh? Do you have any plan to work with Bangladesh government?
Well, first of all, we're working with the Bangladeshi government pretty much every day. Both in terms of Sorkin deals with both the regulatory authority and also the ministry. Absolutely. And the main for us is to ensure that we build a network which is accessible and where they live. That's why we are here. And if you look at Grameenphone's track record, a company which has been around in Bangladesh for 20 years, I would claim that this country has no less of a well-performing network than any other country in the West or in America or anywhere else. And that is our main objective. Alan mind the educational part, but from the main objective, network and access.
Did you want to supplement?
I think on the education part, I think we talked quite a bit. We have an extreme interest in promoting education through technology in this country. We haven't cracked the code. We are very actively looking for good solutions. And we are also, speaking to yourself and your colleagues about maybe not on how to educate people through technology, but how to educate people about internet, because that's a prerequisite to them accessing internet about knowledge. So I think for me, that's the most important starting point. We need to take that 80% of the population that don't know what internet is, tell them what it is, tell them how it's relevant to them, and then they can themselves find that content.
And if I may add, I think this is a very, very important point, because I think that we have, being in the ICT industry, we have a tendency to think that everyone would, in a way, understand what the internet is. But I think we need to, in a way, put ourselves in the shoes of someone which has no device or ICT literacy to understand how big the challenge is to actually comprehend and understand that there is such a thing as the internet. And then you need to understand that it exists, and then you need to understand what it can do for you, and how is it relevant to me as a person. And that hurdle, and I think we are in a way in a very early stage of development where we have not yet reached, at least in the Telenor Group, those people which will be connected in the next 10 to 15 years. Those people most probably have a very basic very basic feature phone. They are numerological literate. They know green and red, and then they know how to use a smartphone when there is no keyboard anymore. So we need to in a way pull with us on a journey before we can actually tell them that then there is something book or benefit. That
there's two more. Also, a government colleague reminding me about the selling points for Grameenphone now, which is an unusual situation for me, but. There are two interesting points. One is we actually do, with the Jago Foundation, we do online schools. Areas in Bangladesh have teachers, areas actually do education in remote areas. That's a beautiful thing to do. The problem with it, it's very infrastructure heavy, which limits its scalability. And thus it remains a CSR activity. The other thing we do with you is, of course, that we provide you with connectivity, right? We provide the Bangladeshi government and institutions with connectivity. And I don't think whatever expectations people have to Grameenphone, and in this nation, they're quite big sometimes. I think it's important to remember that our primary responsibility is connectivity. And operators have globally, at least, operators have a bad track record of developing services. It's not what we do best. And that's why Grameenphone also has a very specific view here that we shall not develop these services. We are bad at that. That's not how we operate. We want to develop, we can bring in valuable, but we are very bad at developing software. We have heavy processes, we have due diligence, we have legal, you know, if you want to do something in a telco, you can do the same thing outside telco at a fraction of the time, because we have so many more rules and regulations that we have to abide by. And that doesn't work in a startup. And that we need to respect.
That's very wise. People are always
almost as bureaucratic as the government.
Yeah, people are always coming to me and saying, you know, Wikipedia, this actually comes up, I would say, once a month. Somebody says, Wikipedia should have like an online university and offer courses and teachers and certifications and degrees, and wouldn't that be perfect? And I say, look, we're pretty good at what we do, but we barely can do what we do, much less there's like at least 5 different innovations in what you just said that we don't have the capacity to do. So I think organizations are very wise when they don't imagine they can do everything.
I think in addition to Alan, I think I want to add the element that you know, it's network and connectivity, but we are also quite good at distributing goods. And that part, it should not be underestimated when we move into a new world where we will distribute different types of goods. It might not be a physical top-up voucher or buying airtimes. It actually could be education that we are pushing at the counters of our retail points. So that is also one of the strengths I think we have.
The biggest example here, right? We can sell a Facebook pack, sure, right? 1 taka for a day of Facebook. I would like to sell an internet education pack. You get 1 taka, you get a day of education. But then I need the product.
Right, absolutely. Great, great. The next question is from the audience to Jimmy. Rifat Islam, a freelancer. How is Wikipedia Zero abiding by net neutrality? Please explain the expression briefly for the audience.
Yes. Well, that's a very complicated question. So I take a nuanced view of net neutrality, actually, where I think it's critically important. So in the US, for example, there's a big battle going on between Netflix and, say, Verizon, Fios, right? Because Netflix uses a huge amount of bandwidth. My view there is I'm very much in favor of net neutrality. My view is I paid for my 150 megabit connection. It's the responsibility of Verizon to make sure I get 150 megabits. And for them to try to charge Netflix for access to me is bizarre because I already paid them. Anyway, that's my view on that. I think that when we get into questions about zero rating, I do think that it's very hard for me to reconcile. You know, I have this fantastic video, which I didn't show today because we've got Wikipedia Zero here, but of some teenagers in South Africa who did an online petition. They had heard about Wikipedia Zero, they had heard about the Telenor projects and so on, and they said, we would like this, and this is why it's meaningful to us. And they say, you know, 90% of us have cell phones, but our school doesn't have a library, and when we do our homework, Wikipedia is expensive for us, so please could we have Wikipedia? And you say, right, if you're oftentimes a network activist in a very wealthy country who's worried about very abstract issues of business competition, it's like, okay, great, that's fine, but you go tell these kids they can't have Wikipedia for free. I think there has to be some kind of public interest understanding. I've heard the expression, which I think Mark Zuckerberg said, but it's not, internet.org doesn't use this as their catchphrase, but I really liked it, which is internet dial tone. You know, the idea of some basic services, meaning health, education, and so on, that hopefully could be available to people no matter how poor they are. Now, how we fund that, how we finance that, how we work that out, that's an interesting question. Net neutrality is a piece of that puzzle. But for me, you know, when I think about the poorest people on the planet getting access to Wikipedia and transforming their lives because of it, I actually don't care about net neutrality whatsoever in that context.
Okay. The next question is to Sarwar from Mainul Islam, web developer Technovista. What about your initiative to collaborate content between Bangla Wikipedia and InfoKosh? I think you answered that to some extent, but if you want to elaborate, please.
Yes, probably you know that the National Content Repository on Livelihood Information, that is known as InfoKosh or Information Kosh, we have around more than 1 lakh content on different issues on education, hair and food, employment, other issues. So I already told that there's a possibility, and it can be a marriage between A2I and Wikipedia, because we have already ready-made content that easily can be taken in the Wikipedia. And I think I am seeing a opportunity for the win-win situation for Wikipedia, because the content are already ready, and we have also a strong network for content producer, because from the top level to bottom level, we have around 150,000 content producers who are producing different kind of content on education, agriculture, and livelihood content. And also 350 partners, I mean government and non-government partners are there. So I think Wikipedia can think on that, how we can work together. Thank you.
I'll go a little faster, running out of time. A question for Erland from Arif Nizami over Twitter. Why not zero-rate Google in Bangladesh?
Yeah, I think it's there's an easy answer and there's a short answer and a long answer. We actually have at a point in time. It comes a little bit back to net neutrality as well. We talk to partners all the time about these concepts. We have a bit of a policy that we try to zero-rate services that serve the purpose of increasing penetration in this country. That's why and that do also have a clear social good. But it's not an easy question. So we will be in that dialogue with Google. YouTube is impossible. Google search is not an impossibility. We've done it before. Maybe we'll do it again. That's a discussion that happens.
But can I just remind ourselves and also the audience about one thing? And that is that for us to be able to deliver this internet for all, there needs to be some sort of investments. This is not going to happen by itself. I mean, of course, we can all believe in Google balloons, and that's going to, in a way, cover everyone, and we're all going to be one happy family. But actually, it requires significant amount of money. And one way or the other, as an operator representing in a way, the operator side there also, together with Alan, it's really important that we are trying to find the balance where we are getting some return on the investments that we're also putting in. And this needs to be based on a business model that actually works, because if not, it's not going to be sustainable over time. So, and as Alan is saying, this is about striking the balance, about ensuring that you enrich your content base, so to be relevant to people, allowing people to understand what this is. But I think we need to, in a way, set expectations at the level where not everything will be, not all services will be free eventually, because we will have to continue to invest in upgrades of our networks for the foreseeable futures. We're talking about 4G. Already, there is a demand, most probably in certain markets, for a 5G. And that investment has to happen.
Okay, I think we are really at the end of our show. There are several questions still left, but I'll ask one for Jimmy and one for Erland. The last one for Jimmy is, given the fact that Wikipedia does fundraising every year, did you ever think of fundraising campaigns to make Wikipedia financially sustainable permanently?
Well, yes. I mean, basically, we do our fundraising every year. We raise, well, most recently around $50 million a year. Be a little bit more next year. Well, it sounds great to do it permanently. So maybe we need like $4 billion, but so far nobody's giving that much. So, so having said that, there is, so we're working through the process internally. The board is discussing, the staff is working on a concept of an endowment, so a separate fund, such that the money that would flow into the endowment, which we would hope to be largely funded by large donors, sort of, I'll go around and twist the arm of all of the internet billionaires I know, and of that money, only the interest could be used, and it would be used as really a last-minute safety fund for Wikipedia. But if you think, just, I mean, given the low interest rate environment that we're in today, if we have 100 million in a fund to pay for Wikipedia long term, the public might think, oh, Wikipedia is fine, they have 100 million. But the truth is the interest on that's going to be 2 to 3 million maximum. 2 to 3 million is a lot less than the 50 million for our budget. And so there's always been this concern about if we had a big endowment, so now make it $1 billion. Okay, on $1 billion, you know, instead of getting 2 to 3 million, you get 20 to 30 million. You still can't cover your budget on just the interest alone. But if we had $1 billion in the bank, people would definitely say, well, I'm not giving them any more money. They've got plenty. So there is a trade-off. It's very complicated, but we are interested. One of the things we know that our donors are interested in is the safety and the long-term stability of Wikipedia. People don't want to donate if we're just going to go out of business in 2 years. They want to see Wikipedia made safe. And having an endowment, even if it's just 2 to 3 million, so that in a worst case scenario where everybody stops donating, we can at least keep the servers running in some minimal way, I think feels comfortable. So we think about these things because we want Wikipedia to be stable and responsible for the long run.
Thank you. Last question to Erlend. It's about Internet for All. How are you going to make Internet for all handicapped people or visually challenged?
Yes, I think is the answer. No, we will not do it, but we will enable it to happen, I think is the other answer. So we will enable it to happen, but the content, again, the services, they're going to have to come from elsewhere. We are not the right people to develop that, but we can provide affordable internet, we can provide the right speeds, and we can provide network and distribution to make it happen. But the applications, and depending on the disability, the device is going to have to come from partners.
Thanks, Erlend. Apologies to the many others who've sent questions from the audience and also over Twitter. We're really at the end of the show. Any last thoughts from Jimmy before we close?
Wikipedia has somewhere 100 to 200 regular contributors in the Bangla language. And so if everyone in this room will edit Wikipedia who hasn't edited before, it'll have a material impact. So please come and tell us what you know.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks to all the panelists, Jimmy, Hakan, Erlend, and Sarwar. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Anil Chaudhary, guests, for attending the panel discussion. I'd like to especially thank panel members, Hakan, Erlend, and Mr. Sarwar. At the end, there's a light refreshment waiting outside for you. So enjoy the refreshment. And thank you once again to be part of this panel discussion. Thank you.